Okay, we're about to start. So, hi, I'm Vicki Vollweiler, founder of College Financial Prep. And tonight, Eleanora Ferrante of Square Peg Square Hole Coaching and I are going to be talking about the college application process, both from the Common App perspective as well as financial aid and scholarships, and what you need to know now that you have seniors in high school that are applying to colleges. So first, we're going to talk about the finances. It's almost a foreign language. You have EFC, CSS, COA, all different things to learn. So we're going to dive in. So first, the most important question that everybody asks is, what are the ways to save on the cost of college? You have merit scholarships, which are typically offered by the schools themselves. You have need-based scholarship, which may be federal or state grants. There's work-study opportunities for the students. There are ways in which you can reduce your EFC, which stands for your expected family contribution, and everybody's EFC is different from one another because that's based on your family's particulars, your income, your assets, and so forth. Some other ways that you could save on the cost of college. You could search for multiple degree programs. For instance, if a student wants to become a teacher, maybe they look for a 5-year program where they can get their master's the 5th year instead of it normally taking 6 years. And also another way that I work with clients to help them save money is to look for the lowest cost student loans. So those are some of the topics from a very top view of what we're going to discuss. Let's jump in. Merit scholarships. This is often the largest amount of free money that a student's going to get. It's going to come from the schools, the colleges themselves, and it's important to research those schools early enough so that way your child knows to apply to those schools. They don't apply to the schools that offer merit aid, they're not going to get it. Merit aid is offered both at public universities as well as private universities. Typically, the dollar amounts are not going to be the same because the cost of a public university is much lower usually than at a private university. So it's important when we get that far to really look at the bottom line numbers. Also, typically, to get merit scholarships at a school, it usually goes by grades or test scores, and typically you want the child to be in the top 25% or so of the applicants that are applying to that school. But there are other reasons that schools give out merit scholarships. Perhaps your child is applying to a geographic location where there aren't many students from New York. They may want to offer merit aid to entice you to go to that school. Or maybe they are a phenomenal, band student, or maybe they're interested in drama or art, or their portfolios are, astounding. So there are different methods to acquire those merit scholarships. Also, for some of the athletes, I believe there are some in this group, if you have an athlete that may be interested in a D3 school, those schools are also more likely to give merit scholarships for your athletes. So that's something else to consider. Now we'll talk about need-based aid. So with need-based aid, you have to file the FAFSA, and that's the free application for federal student aid. With this form, you can qualify for Pell Grants, for work study, and for subsidized loans. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, typically New York State offers the Excelsior Scholarship. Right now, that Excelsior Scholarship is typically for households that earn less than $125,000. Right now, due to the state of the pandemic and the budget in New York State, I'm not really sure what's happening with that Excelsior Scholarship right now. My advice is to plan that New York will not be giving those out moving forward. However, if they do, of course, that's going to be great. So for FAFSA, they're going to look at both the parents and the students' income and assets. So for the students, your students, which are applying to school for fall 2021, they're going to be looking at 2019 tax returns. So keep that in mind as you move forward. A lot of people will say to me, well, our family earns too much money, we're not going to qualify for anything, so we shouldn't bother to file for financial aid. And I say that you could be losing money by not doing it. So here are the reasons that everyone should file FAFSA. One is to acquire those merit scholarships. Not 100% of the schools, but a lot of the schools require a financial aid form to be on file just to hand out those merit scholarships. They're not looking at financial need, but they still want to see the form on file. So it makes sense to file the form just to be able to get that additional money if it's offered. Also, another reason to fill out the financial aid forms is to receive a $5,500 unsubsidized loan. It makes no difference if a family earns $50,000 or $500,000. Everyone is entitled to that $5,500 unsubsidized student loan that is solely in the child's name. You also need to file the FAFSA form if the child wants to apply for work study. And also, I like to look at the FAFSA form almost like insurance. Say there's a change in family situation, whether it's a job loss, a separation or a divorce, an illness in the family, something that causes a downward change in the household's income. That FAFSA form is already on file, and it's much easier to submit paperwork and have those numbers adjusted, which can ultimately save you money. So I mentioned work study, and I always get lots of questions about what is work study and how does it work? So work study is basically a part-time job on campus for the students. They get a paycheck every couple of weeks. So the money does not go directly towards tuition. It's like spending money for the kids. But it's up to the students. You have to check off that you want work study, and it's up to the students to go and find those jobs once they get to campus. There are usually other opportunities, even if the student doesn't register for work study, there are usually other opportunities for the kids to find on-campus part-time jobs. And some people always, hem and haw, should their freshmen do it or should they focus on their study? So I like to encourage kids to get a job on campus part-time for a few reasons. It's work experience for their resume, they have some spending money, and really when the job is quiet, they get to do their homework. And if they need additional time off for studying purposes, it's almost the best situation for them. Another financial aid form that some students will need to complete is the CSS profile. Typically, it's used by private schools. There are about 400 or so in the US, a couple of public universities. I believe University of Michigan is one of them. But in general, it's used by the private universities, such as Syracuse, GW, BU, Ithaca, Tulane, some of the bigger name schools that you're familiar with. The CSS profile is much more in-depth than the FAFSA. They ask you definitely more detailed questions, such as the value of your home, your retirement accounts, the type of cars that you drive. It gets much more detailed. But what they're trying to do, it doesn't necessarily hurt you, but it gives a more holistic view of the family's finances and what they can truly afford to pay for college. So that's why they do that. In a situation where the parents are separated or divorced, typically the FAFSA only looks for information from the custodial parent, but it's possible that the CSS profile may ask for information from both parents. It really depends on which school, because different rules will apply. So that's something that I'll typically work with clients on to determine, what information is needed and from which parents. So I mentioned EFC earlier, and that stands for Expected Family Contribution. And the EFC is derived from filling out the FAFSA form. So your EFC is what the government deems that you can afford to pay for college for each year. And that number can change yearly. For instance, if you only have one child going to school this year and maybe in a couple of years you have two children going to school, your EFC may look very different. So that EFC is going to be based on your assets, your income, the number of children in college, the parents' ages, and a whole host of factors. I believe it's about 88 different factors that are taken into account there. So a big question is, what can you do to reduce your EFC? One thing with FAFSA is that they assess the money that's in the children's name at a higher rate than money that's in the parents. So, try not to keep, any great sums of money in the children's name. Also, and it may be a little late now as seniors, but, you could try to contribute earlier on, more to retirement savings, prior to senior year of high school. So think about that for younger kids that you may have. If you wanted, you could use extra funds to pay down your mortgage for FAFSA purposes. But let me say this. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not your financial advisor, and I'm not your CPA. So please speak with any of those professionals, for what impact that may have on you tax-wise or, any other way. So something else I like to do with clients during the course of senior year, after the acceptances are in and after you've received the student has received their financial awards, is to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. Unfortunately, the schools don't send financial award letters that are in a standardized format. But some of the things to make sure you're comparing, the starting points of each school, the amount of free money that you're receiving from each school in terms of scholarships and grants, the amount that they're offering in work study, and that number is a rough estimate. What that gap amount may be, in terms of what your EFC is and what they've offered, and how much do you have in savings to pay towards college, and what's that amount that you may need to take out in loans. And then ultimately, we're going to look at the total cost of attendance for each college. And that can help you make some smart decisions moving forward, as opposed to the emotional decision only of, which school do we like and what school does, Johnny want to attend. By examining it all, you have a fuller picture of what school is going to cost over 4 years. Something that I always strongly suggest with clients is the families talking about how much money there is set aside for college costs. How much can you afford? How much do you expect the child to be responsible for, in student loans, if they have to get summer jobs to put towards the cost? Every family's goals and values are different, and I think it's very important to talk early on about the family as a whole, their expectations. It will certainly reduce stress during the course of the year, when the student may have one goal or one school in mind, and the parents might be thinking something completely different. So I think it's very important to get on the same page early on. Also, try to plan as best as possible for the student to graduate in 4 years instead of being on a 5 or 6 year plan. If need be, discuss with Eleanora careers, take assessments, find out areas of interest. Hopefully that will cut down on the students changing majors multiple times, and then the student can graduate in 4 years instead of paying extra tuition for another year or two. Like I mentioned earlier, if a student is interested in potentially getting a master's degree, find those 5-year programs, whether it's business, whether it's education, whether it's mathematics, whatever it is, because that'll also save money. And for those students who are taking AP classes, find the schools that will accept those credits. That's another great way to save time and money. So now we're going to talk a little bit about student loans. So student loans are available from both the government and through private lenders. All students will qualify for student loans. It's certainly not as much as we'd like it to be in total, but freshmen qualify for $5,500 a year solely in their name, and that goes up to $6,500 at sophomore year, and then junior and senior years, they qualify for $7,500 each year. So those loans that I just mentioned for the students, they have the lowest rates and they do not need a cosigner. Right now, it's the lowest I've ever seen. It's at 2.75%, I believe, and I'm assuming it's a result of the pandemic. If the child and the family needs more money, then Parent Plus loans through the government are available, as well as loans through private lenders. They both have their different benefits. And that's something that, each family will need to decide on. And, I work with clients on that, what makes the most sense for each family to help save money. Some parents prefer one, some parents prefer the other. If there's a question and you're worried about your credit and it's not good or whatever, the students can qualify for an additional $4,000 in unsubsidized loans if need be. I'm not sure, really the $4,000, in my opinion, isn't enough to fully cover, so there still needs to be another plan in place. So just a little recap of what we discussed. Ideally, research the schools with the greatest likelihood to offer your student merit aid. Fill out the FAFSA form to qualify for the need-based aid, to get the merit scholarships, to get the work-study programs, to get that $5,500 in student loans for your child. Also need to complete the CSS profile for those private schools that require it. It is possible for the private schools, if they're offering merit aid and need-based aid, it is possible for a private university to come out costing less than a SUNY. But again, that takes a lot of research. You want to look for ways to reduce your expected family contribution if that's available to you. You want to analyze the financial aid offers that your student received after they received their acceptance letters. And then you're going to want to find the loans with the lowest cost to you and the most desirable terms. And that's an overview of the financial aid and scholarship process for college.
Thanks, Vicki. So just a reminder to everyone that if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and Vicki and I will answer them either as they come along, or we'll do one Q&A at the end. So I'm going to take you now through the common application. And I just want you to keep in mind a couple of things before I get started with it. There are many applications that you might end up using when your child decides which schools they want to apply to. The Common App is, as might be expected, the most common. So there's over 800 schools that are now on the Common App. Some schools also will use the Coalition App, so you have an opportunity to use one or the other. Coalition tends to be more of the southern schools and the Ivies. Fewer and fewer schools are using the Coalition App these days. I think they're realizing Common App, from my perspective, is a much easier app to use and provides a lot more places for the students to talk about who they are and showcase their talents and interests in a much more expansive way. And so we'll see what the future brings. But there are some schools that only will use the Coalition App, and two of them that come to mind are Texas schools. One of them is UT Austin, and another one is Texas A&M. So if your child wants to apply to one of those two schools, you're looking at the Coalition App. Some schools also have school-specific apps. So in the past, schools that I've worked with that you could only use their app, one of them was Townsend down in Maryland. And another one these days, if you're looking more at the higher end, is MIT. It's got its own specific app, its own questions, essays, and so forth. So you might get lucky and only need to do one application, but you might not. So same thing with the CSS profile and the FAFSA. You might get lucky and just need to do the FAFSA, and you might not. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to take you through the Common App so that you can get a good feel for the different components of it and what you might be encountering as you do this with your kids. So this is the Common App. This happens to be my account. I have myself logged in as a student, so you can get a feel for it. You can see off to, it has several tabs at the top. The first one is the dashboard. And this is where you'll see high level all the different schools that you are considering applying to. So you would, and I'll show you how to do this in a little bit, but you would have these a variety of schools, and it gives you just high level, your application's in progress, whether or not there's a writing supplement, and so forth. When you click on the My Colleges tab, this is a quick and easy way to see the schools in a much smaller area. But it also gives you some information about the schools themselves. So if your child's applying to UConn, you can pull it up and you can see everything you need to know about UConn. There's phone numbers, emails, address, not that we tend to send mail any longer, but how to reach them, as well as some important information if you want their website. Their application deadlines. So spring 2021 really only applies to transfer students at this point. But if you're looking for a fall 2021, you would see their dates there. If they have application fees, it will tell you here. So UConn is $80, not cheap, but that's what the fee is these days. Whether or not they need standardized tests, and as most of you probably know by this point, most schools have gone test optional. Understand though, please, test optional and test blind are two very different things. And test optional these days is really, the kids just can't take the test unless maybe some of your kids were lucky and got to take it last weekend. I had a few of my clients who managed to get it in, or if you took it before the pandemic hit. But for a large number of students, they do not have standardized tests, the scores to submit, or maybe they just are nowhere near what they are capable of, so they are not submitting their scores. Difference between test optional and test blind though, test blind means the school does not look at your scores no matter what. Even if you choose to send them, they're not looking. Test optional, rather, if you send it, they will look. It's pure and simple as that. So again, just some basic information about the school, whether or not they have writing supplements and so forth. The section I want to start with though today is the Common App. I love that they call the Common App section the Common App. They probably could have used somebody in marketing to do a little better job on this one. But this is really the main part of the application. Everything that you input here goes to all of your schools. So this is the first place I start with my students, and it's just really a data entry process, pure and simple. The key categories to it are your profile. This is basically the student's personal information. They're going to ask family information, your education, where did you go to school, what your grades are, your ranking if your school gives it, what tests you've taken, what your 10 activities are, because it will take up to 10 activities in the Common App. The writing section, which is the personal statement, as well as some other things that can go in there. And there are some schools that will ask you to input basically your transcript, put all your courses and grades in. Not all schools will do that. And you can see right here for me, it says one college requires it. So out of all the schools I had listed, UMass Amherst is the only school that's requiring that you put this information in. Keep in mind, some schools, such as University of Delaware, Penn State, just to name two off the top, they have a separate form, a separate system that you will go in and input all the grades, and then they recalculate your GPA based on the things that they consider to be most important to them. So you might have a weighted GPA of 102, but when they recalculate, it may not look like that because they may take out orchestra, band, art. They may leave in just the major subjects, and they may give them different weightings than your school does. You can also see the check marks here for most of my sections. That means I've completed those sections. However, my writing has no check mark. It means I'm missing something. So this is really important information when you're looking at the application. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the personal information. It just basically wants to know who I am. It wants to have, they want my address, how to reach me. Demographics. So they want to know if you have a religion, if you want to input that, that's up to you. Schools typically don't care if you are the same religion that they are, but some schools might, right? So it's good information if it's something useful for you to put in. This is also the section where you're going to give some indication in terms of your background. If you're Hispanic or Latino and you check off yes, you'll have the opportunity to say how you define yourself. You can also define yourself in terms of, obviously, American Indian, white, black, and so forth. But you don't have to. You can choose to leave this as full or as incomplete as you want.
Eleanora, can I jump in for a sec?
Absolutely.
In regards to if anybody is Latino or Hispanic, some of the schools do offer merit scholarship opportunities based on that information, or may even, offer acceptances, higher rates of acceptances. So, of course, it's up to you whether or not you want to check it, but there may be some benefits.
It's true. I had a student last year. He was a Hispanic scholar. He scored very high on his SAT, and he was giving bonus money at some of the schools that other ones did not get, other students. Geography, basically just where have you lived. The language one is an interesting one. So most students take a language in high school. So you have your primary one is English, usually, but some people speak multiple languages at home. I had one student from the moment she was born spoke both English and Spanish. So she has two first languages. Right? So you just want some basic information and your citizenship, because they want to know if you're going to be international or not. Now, this is going to be important for Vicki. Right? If you want to fill out the FAFSA, you need to put your social in here as well to connect the two. So please don't forget to do that. And last but not least, some students have a Common App fee waiver. This means that all of the colleges you apply to, you do not have to pay the application fee. Typically, if you are getting the fee waiver for standardized tests, it will count over here, but this is something that it's specific to the Common App, and it goes to all of the schools. Some schools will give you an application waiver just for their school, and that's different than this. When you get to the profile, the section about the family, what they're looking for is information about your household. So if you have one parent, two parents, you'll put that in there, as well as sibling information. This is the part that a lot of kids get tricked up on. It's very interesting. Most kids don't really know when and where their parents went to college. Right? Unless you go around with your t-shirt all the time that says I graduated from St. John's. It's amazing to me how many students I work with didn't know their parents went to a community college before they went to their final graduation place. My brother-in-law is really big on his graduate school because he went to University of Michigan, but his undergrad is Carleton, and I knew him 20 years before I realized that that's where he went to undergrad. He just never talks about it. So you're going to enter that kind of information here for the parents. I'm just getting down to the bottom. This is important in terms of legacy. So the schools want to know that if you're a legacy, this is one of the places where we'll get that information. And again, if you have siblings, your child will input the data here about that. Moving on to education. This is going to tell them where you go to high school now. And this is, again, pure and simple data entry, when you're going to graduate, if you went to any place else. So some students might have started off at a public high school, switched to private, vice versa. Some might have moved, so you're at Lindenhurst now, but perhaps you started off in Massapequa Park. If that's the case, you will enter that as well. Colleges and universities is a really important piece. So it says, have you ever taken coursework at a college or university? Indicate the number of colleges. This means both dual enrollment and if you just pure and simple took courses at those colleges. So I work with a few kids who over the summer will take a college class at SUNY Farmingdale, at Suffolk. It's not uncommon. So every school that you have any kind of college credit from, you need to include here. And you can see dual enrollment, summer program, or credit awarded directly by college. A lot of schools are offering summer programs, NYU, the Ivies, Wake Forest, Vanderbilt, they offer a lot of them. So if you're a student at any of those, you're gonna wanna include that here. Their grades basically are about where they are right now in terms of GPA, where they stand. If your school has a ranking, they will want to do that, as well as if it's weighted or unweighted. And they want to know, if this is important, make sure that you click off the correct button here. You know, I get a lot of times the kids don't know if their GPA is weighted or unweighted. Somebody's asked a question, do high school college courses apply towards listing college classes? The answer is yes, right? So if it's a dual enrollment class, your child is taking college calc, that counts here. Understand though, AP credit is not college credit in this sense because AP credit comes from the AP. You are not getting, it's not that SUNY Farmingdale is giving you credit at that moment. You may get it once you apply to that school and get in, but AP credit is a little bit different. You also will put in the current schedule of your classes, and so they'll want all that. This is one thing to really keep in mind, that is the honors. This is an opportunity to talk about academic honors. And, you know, obviously, if your child is on honor roll, honor society, it's a given. We'll put that in here. If they have a title, you can also add that as well. But don't forget some of the other things that you might want to, that your student might have done. So if they did science fair, social studies fair, math fair, any of those big curriculum fairs, and they won some kind of honor from that, you want to include that here because you want to make sure that the schools know what your student has done. If you do really well on the APs, if you have an average of 3 or higher, you can have an AP Scholar Award, this Scholar with Distinction. That would be listed on their College Board, on their user profile, whether or not they have that. And other things such as Scholar Athlete Awards, right? So any kind of academic award goes here. Last but not least, really future plans. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it's okay to say undecided, right? Because about half of the students go off to college undeclared. And I know everybody thinks they really need to know what they want to do with the rest of their lives by the time they are, you know, high school seniors. And I keep telling my students, pick a school where when you change your mind, because chances are you will, you have other options available to you, right? If you decide you want a double major, you want a minor, you want to have enough flexibility when you get to that school to do all that. Right? So future plans, if you know them, great. If you don't, it's quite all right. The next section is testing. And I know this is going to be one of those things that you're not sure about. If your kids have tested and you want to put their scores in, you can indicate as ACT, SAT, SAT subject test, the AP test, the IB test, all that data goes here. For each individual school, you'll have the option of whether or not you want to send your standardized tests. But I always input them here if they have them, and then you can decide school by school which ones to do. And pure and simple, you just go in and you'll put those in through there. The activities is another really important place. This is a spot where you get to highlight who you are. And I tell the kids, here's where you really get to show what's important to you. If you do something once, it's probably not that important. Probably not something you want to put in there. So if you did Relay for Life once, that's wonderful. And I'm sure the American Cancer Society is happy to have you on board and helping that year. But what we're really looking for here are things that are important to you. And it's really about depth as opposed to breadth, right? So while you can put up to 10 activities in here, and I work with some students, like, Eleanora, I have 30 activities. Did you really do anything with some of those? How could you possibly have 30 activities? Which are the ones that are most important? Which are the ones that you really care about? Which are the ones that showcase who you are and really define you well? So you get to list, they've updated the Common App this year. It's a lot nicer. You have space for defining the type of activity it is, and just so you get a feel for them, there's a wide range. Work, theater, social justice, research, music, ROTC, foreign language. There's a lot of choices. You get, you will put in the position, and if you have some kind of leadership, you will state that there. The name of the organization. Here's a helpful hint. I always recommend if you're working with an organization that's hard to know what it is by the title, you have up to 100 characters to define it. So I work with a student who works at a local camp, and he's like, well, I work at a camp. It's not just a camp. It's a camp for kids who have very specific special needs. It's an autistic camp, right? So you want to, and the camp, you don't understand it by the name of it. So you want to put in a little definition here. You click off here, well, you'll be able to put a description in 150 words. Again, another tip here. Do not use I, we, do not use was, is. You want to just get right into the meat of it because 150 characters is not a lot of space, right? So some students would say, I assisted researchers. Nope, you know, just go right into it. And I highly recommend that you utilize resume action verbs, right? So when I work with my students, I have a workbook for them, and it has a list of all resume words. So I also do career coaching. I do resumes and cover letters, so I know what you would put in a typical resume, and that's what I'm looking for here. Very defined, very impactful statements. So the tip, impact, and results are really important here, right? Don't just tell me the job description. If you can give me a better feel for what you're doing. So if you look at this one, assisted researches with DNA coding for genetic mutations. It's pretty specific. It gives you a good feel. The grades that you participated in. Now, some people are asking me, how do you handle activities they plan on doing senior year, but the activity may not happen because of COVID? You can't put it in.
St. Albans, you must be one of the first 6
So you
cars
can't,
on
somebody's
this
got us
train.
not on mute, so if you could, please make sure everybody's on mute. Thank you. So if you're doing it, then you put it in. If you're not doing it, you can't put it in. And I know that's really unfortunate, but I will get to a place where you can talk about those kind of things if you need to. The other piece to this is if you play a spring sport, well, you're not doing it yet. You know, the schools are going to realize you're going to do it, but you haven't done it yet. So you need to keep those pieces in mind. And they want to know, are you going to do this in college? The reason is, so say you have marching band, and you click off here that you plan to do a similar activity in college. Well, somebody from that marching band program is probably going to seek you out. Right? And sometimes, to Vicki's point before, what gets you into a school and what gets you money, if they really need somebody for that marching band, they really need a tuba this year, well, you might get lucky, and they might want to give you more merit aid as a way of encouraging you to be there. Right? The same thing with your sports will go in here, right? So you'll put in your position, what you've done, what your accomplishments have been. If you're a track or a cross-country runner, you know, you might put your PR in there. Again, put this in. Chances are that somebody from that school, if they're looking for softball players, that coach may reach out to you. Right? So that, and any place that you can have a better way of showing that you're a good fit for that school increases your chance of getting in, increases your chance, if they offer merit money, of getting that. So all the activities will go in here. I'm not going to go through all of them that I've got in there, but you can see this is a great place for that. Again, really pick the things that are important. And I just want to highlight this one thing here. It says family responsibilities. A lot of times kids undervalue their family responsibilities. So I worked with a girl last year who could not do a lot of extracurricular activities because her parents both worked and she had two much younger siblings. They were first and third grade. They could not be left alone. So she was not able to do extracurriculars because she had to babysit her younger siblings. That can go in as an activity. Right? So it's really a full picture. The writing is where you will put in your personal statement. Some of you may have seen these. These are the essay prompts for this year. They are the same as last year. The goal here is to write an essay that really speaks about who the student is. It might be wonderful that, you know, the student's grandmother inspires them and they just think that their grandma's the most wonderful person, but that doesn't help me know who you are unless you tell me about yourself in the essay, right? I've read some really great essays about an activity. I've read great essays about people that, that they look to, but I don't know anything about the students. So I always ask my students after they hand me an essay, what do you want the essay to tell me? And if it doesn't tell me that, then I make them restart, right? Because it needs to define them. So somebody handed me a great essay this week to read, and it talked about how she stepped foot onto the stage, even though she was really afraid to get out there and do it. And I was like, it's a well-written essay. You talked about your fear and conquering that. I said, but is that what you want to get across? And she goes, no, I want people to know that sustainability means a lot to me in environment and climate change. I said, well, I don't read any of that here. So while this is a great essay, it is not a great essay for your college application. So another tip here, you want to have other people read it besides just your child. A lot of kids think they can do it on their own, but a lot of times I find it doesn't really reflect well who they are. Your English teachers are a great starting point for that. If they have read it, that's great. I often say I'd rather have a marketing teacher read it, because remember, your college application is really one big marketing tool, and you need to make sure you're showcasing yourself appropriately. So I ask my kids, what is it that's important about you? What do you want to get across? I have a whole workbook that they go through. And at the end of it, it talks about a summary. What are their 3 strengths? What are their talents? What are the things they love to do? They could change one thing. What would it be? What do they want to do with their lives? Right? We're really pulling together a lot of information to make sure their application and their essays really talks to that. So it's important for somebody else to read their essay to make sure that it gets the point across of who they are. It needs to be grammatically correct. You can't miss punctuation. Right? Those are the kind of things that drive admissions counselors crazy. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest essay. I had a student yesterday that I had to tell her, please stop reading other people's essays. There are plenty of great people out there on the web that have great services for doing it, and you can read 1,000 essays, but it's not going to be authentic to you. I had one of my clients, it's a sister and a brother. The sister is very creative. She has an amazing ability to convey her feelings through her words. The brother does not. He's very cut and dry, and he loves numbers. And so the mom was reading his essay, and she kept saying, Eleanor, it's not creative, it's not funny, it's not flowery, it's not this. I'm like, and neither is he. But the essay really spoke to who he was, what was important in him, and he told some great stories in it about what he loves to do. And at the end of the day, that's what the essay has to be. It has to be true to you and easy to read. Once you've got your essay in, you'll put it there. Common App wants to make sure you have no disciplinary issues, but they also give you this really nice space for additional information. I think this space, here's another tip, it's highly underutilized. People don't realize what you can do with it and how important it is. This year, they've added the COVID-19 space. We'll also find this on the Coalition app. This is a place to talk about how COVID has impacted you. So the description, basically it's looking for what's the impact it's had on you long term in terms of your safety, family circumstances, future plans. There are a lot of kids who do not have access to technology. There are a lot of kids who had to take care of their siblings. There are a lot of kids who their schools did not do a great job in terms of what they were learning. They were not able to do a lot of the things they wanted to do. This is not meant to be a section where you can whine. Please don't do that. Because the colleges are already saying we don't want to hear about all the things you didn't get to do necessarily. If they're not big things, we know that kids didn't get to do camp. We know that kids might not have gotten to work this summer. But if you didn't get to go to a really big conference that you wanted to do, you could put that here. If you had, like I said, technology issues, you had, one laptop in the house, and you had 3 kids who needed to work on it. Those kind of things go in here. But it's also can be the flip side, the positive. So did you do something really great because of what happened? Right? So I had one kid who, she did a school supply drive. And so she wrote about that. She wouldn't have done it otherwise. Another kid did online dance classes. So she's writing about that here. Right? Somebody else, his younger sister decided to start a camp and she needed an athletic director. So he's a great coach. He knows how to teach kids sports. He's a referee. So he was the athletic director for Camp Quarantine. Love it, right? So that kind of information can go here. So this is a nice spot. It's only 250 words, but it's a nice spot to use for things that you were impacted by. It's also a space for those kids whose family were impacted negatively in terms of maybe you got sick, your family got sick, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe your parents were healthcare workers, right? You can write about that here. This is the other additional information section. This is always here, and this is 650 words, free form to do whatever you need to talk about things that maybe you couldn't fit someplace else. I like to use this space, you can see here, figure skating. So if you have an athlete and you can't figure out where else to put all their awards, this is a good spot for it. My daughter's a musician. All of her musical awards went here. If you are a Girl Scout, Boy Scout, you're getting your Gold Award, Eagle Scout, tell me about your project here. If you have done some things that are different and don't fit anywhere else, you can use the space and talk about it. Again, we're trying to get the point across that you're an amazing kid and you have all this to offer, right? What do you bring to the party? So that's a lot of the information that are going to go in here. So that is the Common App section. When you look at when you're ready to start inputting colleges, you go to the college search. You can type in the name of one, right? So, and I apologize, I have fat fingers and I type that incorrectly. So if I'm looking for Virginia Tech, right, I can type in Virginia, up pops Virginia Tech. I click it, and it now gets added to my list of colleges. So when I come to my colleges, you can see them all here. And the important thing to know about this is you want to look at the schools and see what the questions are that they have, because each school is going to have different questions to answer. UConn, for instance, when you click on their questions, you will get general questions. They're going to want to know when you're going to start the term, if you plan to live on campus, if you want to send a portfolio. I work with art students and music students. If you want to send a portfolio, what major you might want to do comes under academics. What campus in terms of UConn. So these are all the questions that are very specific to this school. If you go to, I'll take Cornell as another one. The questions you're going to see are going to be different, right? So they might want to know, did you serve in the military, right? If you want to go, if you want to apply EA, ED, all that information will go in here. And they will want to know, do you have any family that graduated from Cornell? Is anybody else applying? So these questions are school specific. What I want you to keep in mind here, you can see that there's the application and then there's a writing supplement. Some schools will have a separate writing supplement, which goes in afterwards. And these can be pretty significant. So if you look at Cornell, it's asking for a 650-word essay for this particular school within its ILR, using your personal, academic, and volunteer work experience. Describe the topic or issues that you care about and why they are important to you, right? So a lot of times they hide the questions. You might not realize where they are. Cornell's pretty out front. They tell you there are questions and they tell you there's a writing supplement. When I click on Virginia Tech, it only says questions. So you think you're good. There's no writing supplement. However, when you get into it and look at them, see down here, haute cuisine profile. What is that? Oh, well look, it's 4 essays that you have to answer their question. So sometimes they are hidden in here. Okay. So just some things to keep in mind. A couple of questions that people wanted to know. Where do you upload the essay, right? So here you're going to do a cut and paste. You don't upload essays into the Common App. You upload into Coalition. So you will do your doc in Word or Google Docs. You will do a cut and paste, and you will put it right into either the individual questions or the Common App essay. But you want to make sure you find all the questions. We learned the hard way when my son was applying to Syracuse a number of years ago that he had 250-word essays he didn't know existed because they were hidden. All right, and one last piece to this. Somebody asked me up front, how do you get your student on the Common App? How do you sign up? Where is it? And things like that. So the Common App, I will sign out. And this is you'll see this page, and if I don't refresh it, it won't let me back in, so just bear with it 1 second. It's one of the bugs there. So if you go to commonapp.org, it will bring you, here. You can either create an account, or once you have one, you can sign in, right? And when you create an account, it's going to ask you, are you a first-year student? You will put in your email address, your password, some basic information, first name, last name, phone number. I always tell the kids, you can use your mobile number if you're willing to get text, but you need to be ready to pick up that phone if the school is going to call you. So I usually have them put their home number in as their primary and then the mobile as their other. You're going to put your address. They want to know if you're an EU country. I don't know why, but that's one of the questions there. And then who are you? How, what's the best way to say who you are? You're applying as a first year. Most kids that you all are will be doing that. Right, so this is how you get into it initially. And once you're in, you can, I'm going to go back there. So I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to answer some of the questions that are coming up. And then there are some for Vicki as well.
Eleanora, it's Beth-Ann. Because you're on the app, I just wanted, somebody had a question early on and it escaped me on our page 2021, and I said it might be something for you to answer about linking a resume. Is that necessary? Did you point that out? I'm not sure. I might have lost track.
So some of the schools will ask you if you want to put a resume in.
Okay.
And
can you point that out to the parents where that might be located so they could connect that resume?
Absolutely.
To the app? Thanks.
Yep. So I will share my screen again. And bear with me when I get back into their system. And this is one of the glitches on the Common App that I don't love. When you come out, you have to come back in. Sometimes they don't want to let you back in. So UConn is one of the schools that will allow you to upload a resume. So when you go to their questions, generally it's under activities. Sometimes it's under other places, but you can see here, if you wish to submit your resume, you may upload it here. So you can do it either from your computer or if it's on a Google Drive. You can put it here. They also, some schools will allow you, if you have an online presence, to put the URL for that in here. And if you are an art student, you can see I clicked off on a button that said I wanted to submit my portfolio. Most schools use SlideRoom. Right, so this is specific generally to art students. I will tell you this, if you have a student who wants to submit things through for their art portfolio, start early and understand that every SlideRoom is different. So you may have different requirements for different schools. It's annoying, but it is what it is. Stop sharing again. So I'm just
Eleanor, why don't you read the questions? So
that's where I'm heading to. I'm going to the first one for Vicki. So Vicki, how do you know if a school requires the CSS profile?
Typically when you're applying to the school, on the school websites, the financial aid page, it will tell you. What it will not tell you necessarily, always ways to find out, is if they're going to require the information from the non-custodial parent, if it's a divorce situation. So that's the part that gets tricky with CSS profile. But yeah, it should be on the school's websites if they need just FAFSA or FAFSA and CSS profile.
Another question for you. Could you give a little more insight into where we would look for grants and scholarships?
Grants are typically based on financial need. The scholarships are really going to come from the schools themselves. It takes a lot of doing. There may be a list of schools that your child is interested in. Their friends have gone to different schools. Their friends have gone to different schools. If you want, you can go, each school lists the scholarships, the specific scholarships that they offer, or most schools do anyway. And you can definitely find different opportunities there. The more flexible your family is, and the more schools you're willing to consider, the more financial opportunities there could be. If you want, you can go, and these aren't necessarily from the schools themselves, but if you want to go to my website at collegefinancialprep.com/free-money, I have a whole page of different sites to research scholarships. There are scholarship opportunities for music students and for veterans and for New York State residents and for, every other category. So you'll find the big names plus some other scholarship sites there.
Vicki, is that the link that you gave me initially when we first spoke? Sue Gregorio told me that you had a list. Was that the links you gave me initially?
I think so.
Okay, so I'll put those on our page as well, Melanie or myself or someone will, so they can
Okay,
get
great.
the access. Okay, yeah. We have all of your contact information, by the way, to all the parents on the page. Vicki's all of her contact information, and then Eleanora, if you want to add yours, send it to me. I'll put your information up as well.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen, and you can see everything.
Thank you.
As well. So there you go.
Just so you all know, I also have a Facebook page, so I'm always putting blog posts and relevant, timely information there. So it's on facebook.com/college financial prep.
And I do the same thing as well on my side. So you can follow us both there, and also on LinkedIn if you have a LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
Somebody wants to know, do you start to apply senior or junior year? Also, is there a limit to the number of AP credits schools will take? So the answer is you can open a Common App anytime you want. Most of the Common App section data will carry over, but some years they do make changes to the Common App, so you will have to make adjustments on August 1st. It opens up afresh for the new school year. So generally, I wait because you don't always know what's going to happen with Common App, what changes they're necessarily going to make. In terms of the limit to AP credit, it depends on the school. So some schools, typically the public school, will take a lot of AP credit, and you will be able to use that to knock off the number of credits that you need to complete at that school. So to Vicki's point before, you might be able to graduate in 3 years. My daughter has a number of friends who graduated college in 3 years because their credits counted and enabled them to do that. Other schools, what it does, you still need the 120 credits to graduate, but it enables you to take higher level courses sooner or to double or triple major. So my son's school did not count the credits in terms of taking time off, but he was able to major in both history and 2 business majors by having a lot of AP credits. Keep in mind though that not every credit will count the same way at different schools. 3s, 4s, and 5s count differently at different schools. And some schools will give you 2 semesters, and some will only give you 1 semester for the class, and some will only count 1 history class, not 2, even if you've taken 2 APs.
Here, Eleanor, let me add this. While the Common App opens August 1st, the FAFSA form does not open till October 1st. So this is good preparation for what's to come in October.
And that kind of answers Vicki's question for you. Should we do the FAFSA right away just to have it on file, regardless of decisions being made as to where and if?
As to what was the last part of that?
Regardless of where they're deciding to apply to.
So yes, when you fill out the FAFSA form, it gives you the opportunity to include up to 10 schools. Say your child knows 7 definitively that they want to apply to, and they're tossing around another 3, but not sure if they're going to send them applications. You include it on the FAFSA anyway. And if you need to apply to more than 10 schools, then you're going to need to wait a few days till it's processed, and then re-go in and add more schools.
So somebody's asking, which should we do first, the FAFSA or the Common App? The answer is the Common App opens first. So I always say get that one going, and it doesn't matter where you want to apply. I can pretty much guarantee that no matter where your child wants to go to school, they're going to need the Common App. There are very few students I work with that don't need the Common App for at least 1 school. I don't start the Coalition app unless I have to, right? But the Common App, I get started right away. Only some schools allow a resume is a question. Yes. So it really depends on the school. Some want it, some don't. When the students I work with, once I know where they're looking to go, if they don't have a resume, we pull one together. Even if they're putting their activities in, a lot of times I find it's helpful to have that, because sometimes you can put more information on a resume. You don't want to go crazy. It should be 1 page, but you can put more information there. And if you are an athlete, there's such a thing as an athletic resume. My son had that he was captain of his fencing team. So he wanted to showcase who he was, to put that in there. You find the Common App, it's just commonapp.org. So you'll get there. Do I know if UC schools are test blind or optional? Great question. So UC schools right now are test optional. They are looking to, they're talking about being test blind. They are also looking to create their own test. And the UC schools, the University of California system, there's 2 applications that California students, you use to apply to California schools, the UC app or the Cal State app. So UC schools do not use the Common App, although University of Southern California does. I will put in the chat the link to the Common App. How will you know if your high school college courses will be accepted? You can reach out to the schools you're interested in and ask them if they will take it. But generally, you find out that credit counts once you have been accepted. But nothing wrong with calling the school and saying, this is what my child is doing. These are the schools that they have credit in. Will you take it? Highly recommend you have your kid do it instead of you, because you want to get them out there and talking to them. Can you fill out the Common App without the SAT, ACT scores since we don't know them yet? Yes, absolutely. You don't need to include them. So should we start the Common App now? Yes, absolutely. So I will put in the Common App link here. Vicki, is there anything else you would like to add?
Just everybody should remember they're going to be using 2019 tax data for the FAFSA, especially if you've had changes since then. You know, no matter what those changes are, you know, you may want to give me a call. There may be opportunities to be able to reduce your EFC. You know, while I work with everybody, I seem to do a lot of work with, you know, parents who are separated and divorced and widowed and just, you know, changes in circumstances. And I've been able to help a lot of people save a lot of money. So that feels really good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And somebody's asking, can you schedule SAT and ACT tests now? Yes, you can. Some schools are starting to do them at the schools during the school day. My kids were Whitman grads. I work with a lot of Walt Whitman High School students, and they are doing that right now. So you can still add on to some schools, to some locations and get in for them. I'm also gonna tell you, don't travel out of state. Don't make yourself crazy trying to get a test score. I know kids who have gone like multiple states across trying to do this. It adds so much stress to them. It's not needed. It's just really not needed. Couple last questions. Will my info be saved if I fill out the Common App now but continue it later? Yes. And you only send the transcript. You don't send the transcript. Somebody wants to know about submitting that. Your guidance counselors will do that. So it's now 8:04. So Beth Ann, if you would like to add any comments.
I just wanted to say about your previous piggyback what you said about the SAT and ACT. I believe, I don't know if Roseanne Ello is on here. She did post in our 2021 page that there is a new open window for signups for SAT and ACT. I believe it was her, I'm not sure. It, again, has escaped me. There's a lot of posts, but that window is open now for them to sign up again, I believe. So that's something everybody should look into as well. So Vicki, I'll let you close out. We so appreciate, I know this is so helpful just from getting on to the Common App. These are things that the students should have had in their, obviously their spring semester at Lindenhurst. However, you know, COVID prevented them from getting this guidance. So I know that was very helpful. And of course the FAFSA, I mean, I've educated now on how to get these loans I wasn't aware of. So that's really important. We do appreciate, I know Vicki, you're doing this out of the kindness of your heart. You brought on Eleanora. We are so grateful because we haven't had much guidance from our higher ups at our school because of the situation we're in. So we do appreciate it. And I did want to tell the parents that we're going to post the contact information. Vicki and Eleanora would be happy to offer their services.
Beth Ann?
Yeah.
If everybody wants to send us your email addresses, we have a timeline and a list of resources to send to everybody.
Okay. Probably, I would think the best way to handle that.
If the parents want to put their emails in the chat box, then we can send everything to them.
Okay, great. I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. There's a chat button down below, parents. If you look down at the bottom, mouse over the bottom of your screen, you see a little chat button. And also, if you, I mean, it's totally up to you. I don't know how confidential or private the information is, but that page is hitting all of these people. That's why we kind of did it this way. So we didn't have to manually put their emails in, because it is time consuming for us to do that. But yeah, that's another idea. If they want to give it to you, you can directly contact them. And I did tell them that your services are being offered outside of this session. So if they'd like to contact you with that personal information, I'll put that up as well on the page, and they can move in that direction with you on their own time. So I'm so grateful to have you guys. I'm sure everybody will agree. Thumbs up, hand clap. Yay. Thank you for coming in today, you guys. Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
And thank you for having us. We're glad to be here.
Anytime. So parents, before you sign off, if you want to get that personal information from them, can you just go ahead and drop your email in there? And I guess Melanie, myself, or Emery, or whoever else is moderating that page will definitely put up some things for you as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great week, ladies.
Thanks. You too.
And weekend. Nice to meet you. Nice to finally meet you.
Yes, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye, and we'll leave the chat open for whoever's adding in email addresses right now. Is anyone still on?